£5,000 a year, greatly afflicting his daughters, who were persecuted and deprived of their appointed men by their distant relatives. And her mother's possessions, though important in their lives, cannot be reduced. His father was a lawyer in Meryton, and he remained £400. He has a sister who is married to Mr. Phillips, his father's secretary, who was also a business manager, and his brother who lived in London on a well-known business. Longbourn village is about a mile from Meryton, a simple distance for the girls, who are usually tested 3 or 4 times a week, to pay for what they pay for their aunt and the street vendor. The last 2 members of the family, Catherine and Lydia, are often pictured here. Their minds are much more straightforward than those of their sisters, and without a good gift, a trip to Meryton is essential for them to be able to enjoy their morning and talk about the evening. And though the world does not know that the whole world can have it, they always think of learning from their aunt. Now, in particular, he was told and rejoiced that the weapons had arrived, was supposed to be all winter, and Meryton had a headache. Their trip to Masnell Phillips is very helpful and very interesting. Every day increased their knowledge of police names and relationships. It was not long before their house was buried, and they finally found the police. Phillips visits them all, and opens them and their grandchildren at an unknown entertainment store. They do not speak without leaders, and Mr. After listening to the talk the next morning, Bennett made the following suggestion. According to what I can say in your speech, you must be one of the silliest women in the world. I delayed it for a minute, but now I am satisfied. Catherine woke up unresponsive, but Lydia, sarcastically, continued to show respect to Captain Carter and hoped to see him in the afternoon, when he was about to leave London the next day. I'm surprised, my friend, that you love your children so much. If I want to think a little bit about my children, I shouldn't be there, she said, Bennett. If my kids are crazy, I have to believe I have power all the time. Yes, but really, everyone loves it. It's just that when we see her, I don't agree with her. I ask that our thoughts be aligned in any way, but so far I disagree with you on the grounds that our 2 daughters are very young. Oh dear Bennett, don't expect girls to understand their father and mother. If such parents come, I can say that you will not think more of supervisors than we do. I remember when I loved red dresses, and yes, I still love them in my heart. And if a young adult who is 5,000 or 6,000 a year wants one of my daughters, I will not refuse. And I think Colonel Forster was very good one night to see Sir William on his staff. Mamma, says Lydia, my aunt told Colonel Forster and Captain Carter not to visit Miss Watson as often as they had at the time of her arrival. They saw them standing in Clark's library. Mrs. Bennet was unable to return the door, and the letter was sent to Mrs. Bennet. Came from Holland, a slave awaiting a response. The woman's eyes were completely covered. Bennet was overjoyed, crying loudly when his daughter read, That's right, Jane, where are you from? But how? What do you mean by that? Honey, hurry and tell me soon, love. This is Mrs. Beanley, Jane announced. I know. If you are not as sweet as eating today with Louisa, we risk hating each other for the rest of our lives, because a day of tea between 2 women is finally empty. Stone. Please come as soon as possible. My brother and elder went to dinner with the officer. I always. Carolina comes from the first name. These are the officers, Lydians said. I was surprised Auntie was not with us. We have a right to eat, Smith said. Can I have a car? Jane asked. No, dear, you fix a horse, and as it falls, you and I can sleep every night. That's a good idea, Elizabeth, if you're not sure we'll let him go. Well, I see, great, but who's safe with Meryton Beanley and no Hurst team? Master can't. But dear, your father could not save a horse, I know, for he seeks the field. Blessed is the Lord, who is not. Well, they work more often in a country than they do. But if you know it, Elizabeth said, my purpose is to say. At last he thanked his father for the horse he had ridden. This caused Jane to ride a horse, and her mother brought interesting daws on a bad day. Its purposes will be fulfilled. Jane had just disappeared before it rained. The sisters didn't help him, but the mother was happy. The rain continued all night without breaking. Of course, Jane can't go back. This is a great idea for me, really. Bennett has said it several times since he had a water debt. Until morning, but he did not know the truth. Breakfast was about to end when a Netherfield employee handed Elizabeth the following letter. My dear, I did something wrong this morning, so I read it yesterday. My loyal friends do not know that I will be back until it is finished. They also love Mr. Reba Jones. Why not be afraid? I would say, etc. Oh, good dear, Mr. Bennet said as Elizabeth read the note. If your daughter is very ill, if she's dead, it's nice to know she's looking for her. Mr. Beanley and your own order. Also, I'm not afraid he'll die. People won't die in the cold. They'll take care of him. As long as he stays there, he'll succeed. I'll go if I get in the car. Elizabeth was so anxious that she wanted to go with her even though the car was not available. And since this is not a mare, posting is the only option. He confirmed his secret. How stupid you are, my mother said. When you think about it, all in this filth, you do not deserve to show up on arrival. I'd love to see Jane, that's all I want. His father said, Is this a sign for me, Lizzie, to throw a horse? No, I do not want to miss going. The distance is only when the subject is the subject, only 3 miles. Return to eat. Mary says, I marvel at your evil deeds, but most desire to be guided by reason. I think the weight should be equal to what you want. We're taking you to Merritt, said Catherine and Lydia. Elizabeth accepts his company, and the young women go with him. If we go fast, we can see something before Captain Carter leaves, Lydia said. At Meryton they parted, with 2 men cleaning the police station. Elizabeth is just walking into the field, calm down, leaning over, jumping in the bog, getting tired, wearing black socks, and the house has bright industrial heating. She shows up in the morning in the room where everyone but Jane gathers, and is very surprised. Incredibly, Mr. Hurst and Mrs. Beanley had to walk 3 miles on hot summer days. Elizabeth had decided not to forget her. He received a warm welcome, and no man is better than his brother. Good comedy, good heart. Darcy didn't say much, and Hurst didn't. The first one separates them, thinks about how to use the skin, and says they are the only one to come. The last one thinks about the future. After the questions were not firmly answered, her sister, the Queen, was blessed by the one who died and remained. Though she did not rise, they came out, which was a sign of such love, enough that there was no place to leave the girl. I am glad that Elizabeth should be informed immediately, and Jane's, who show a fear of embarrassment and uncomfortable visit time, and would have done so to please this, unless otherwise. Calm. However, when there was much controversy, Peter stood up, and with the Mrs. Beanley, whom he had gathered, I could not do it at all, but that his device was evil, which what he did to thank you for the great kindness to me, in the middle. This would be for Elizabeth was the silence of the current case. After breakfast, he met the sisters, and Elizabeth loves them too, seeing how they showed Jean's love and loneliness. The cosmetologist came and tested the patient, saying that he had a fever and that he needed to be examined thoroughly. He advised her to go back to sleep and promised her his intentions. The instructions were immediately followed due to the high incidence of malaria and headaches. Elizabeth did not leave her room for a moment, or always other queens are present. The boss without them would have nothing to do. At 3 o'clock, Elizabeth was forced to leave, and met suspicion. Ms. at Netherfield today. Elizabeth agreed, and a servant was sent to Longbourn to tell the couple where he was and to return the goods. Until next week.
Yeah, but you've got your shoes on.
Yeah, that's true. You don't want him being too tall because then the subtitles will cut your head off. But that's
Well,
fine.
you just
I
have
can
to
tip it up a bit.
get it so that it's sort of right.
Yeah, I know.
That's the height I am. Well, I'm not really sort of down because it's cold, this floor.
Yes.
Feet. We've got bare feet. haven't we? They could have kept the clocks on if you wanted to.
No.
Now, so, in chapter 7,
Yes.
How close do you want to be? Are we close enough?
oh, you're fine, yeah, you're both on the screen. Yes. Where Mr. Bennett keeps having his cravat adjusted by his wife.
Yes, that's right.
The genders of this get very complicated. Because they keep changing sex. So nobody knows who's who. But
Never mind.
apparently, we get the last two members of the family, which is Catherine and Lydia. They're often pictured here. I know you usually take a picture of us, really, shouldn't you?
What do you mean?
Well, it says the last two members of the family, Catherine and Lydia, are often pictured here.
Oh,
So I said, if you had two of us, and you could
Yes,
you could take a photo of us.
yes. Well, then you get in there.
I don't mean actually take a photo. I mean pretend to take a photo.
I
You know, he's got
to at least
realise what
give
you
them-
meant. I realise what you meant.
Yes. It has a bit of a problem with translating militia. It was not long.
Oh, never mind. It's vaguely like that. Puffier and puffier.
Anyway, the woman's eyes. Now Bennett was overjoyed. It could be either Bennett, since it's actually Mrs. Bennett, but apparently it's his. So, but apparently Bennett was overjoyed. Oh well, we have some Lydians. That's what happens when you accidentally translate it into Latin. So the Lydians are apparently telling us that these are the officers. And then according to Smith, I do not know who Smith is, we have a right to eat. Now, who do we have now? Mary comes into this now, apparently. Hello.
Hello.
Oh, Mary.
I marvel at your... Her sister, the Queen, was blessed by the one who died.
Always go through that window.
Oh dear. Though she did not rise, however, when there was much controversy, Peter stood up. And with Mrs. Beanley, whom he had gathered, I could not do it at all, but that his device was evil. And what he did to thank you for the great kindness to me... I'm losing the thread of this sentence.
Yes, I think really is losing the will to live.
The cosmetologist came and tested the patient. I'm not sure if a cosmetologist does cosmetics or the cosmos, but never mind.